Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about, as the title suggests, every curse technique that Yuta Okatsu has copied so far in the anime of JJK. Yuta's curse technique is very interesting and he uses against Sukuna in the most recent chapters, and his copy technique is very vital as it's one of the things that gives him an edge over other sorcerers, and understanding it is very important when it comes to understanding the character of Yuta and how he's able to fight so powerfully against other powerful sorcerers. So I will just try to explain in depth on how he uses his technique, not just the curse techniques that he's copied so far, but how he's able to do it and the theories behind it and the nuances that you might have missed in the anime. So let's get right into it. Yuta's curse technique is very cracked as it allows him to copy the techniques of other sorcerers and use them as naturally as they do. Compared to most other techniques out there, Yuta's has the almost limitless growth potential since no restrictions have been revealed just yet. Every time he copies a new technique, he becomes an even more powerful sorcerer, as we've seen in the anime. It is very important to note that Yuta's copying ability is not just limited to one specific technique or individual. He has the potential to copy and utilize various curse techniques, making his power one of the most deadly in the JJK universe. The first time that we actually get to witness Yuta copying a curse technique is when he first meets Inumaki. Inumaki is very important in the anime and is a very unique character because sorcerers from the Inumaki clan are typically the only ones who can use the technique known as cursed speech. This method fills the words of its practitioners with strong cursed energy, making everyone who hears them follow their orders without question. Cursed speech has varying degrees of potency based on the intensity of the order and the user's cursed energy relative to the target. And as you get more into depth on the characters and their interactions with each other, Yuta eventually manages to copy the technique from Inumaki, as no surprise there. But how he did it is still a mystery, as it wasn't completely shown what Rika did to fulfill the condition, if there even is one. And this is the scene that I can speculate that Rika did something in order to attain Inumaki's curse technique, whether it was taking a small degree of his blood and consuming it, or something else that would satisfy the condition, because right after this scene, it quickly cuts to where Yuta summons the Inumaki clan's curse sigil. Yuta uses it to then command Kenjaku to die. The second time that we get to see Yuta use curse speech is in chapter 178, in his battle against both Yuro and Ishigori. He shouts "don't move" to Yuro, who is shocked by the fact that Yuta can use curse speech. Yuro blocks his attack by simply covering her ears as soon as she noticed Yuta using this technique, which is what many other people in the anime have been seen to do counter cursed speech, is just cover their ears. And moving on, within this exact same fight, as their fight progresses, Rika manages to bite Yuro's left arm, which is soon followed by Yuta using Yuro's attack against Ishigori, sky manipulation. It allows its users to treat the sky as if it was a surface, and changes properties to some degree. Sky manipulation users can fold all the space between two targets, allowing them to cross great distances in an instant. They can also use the same ability in an offensive attack known as Thin Ice Breaker. After applying this technique to the sky, Yuta and Uro can shatter the manipulated surface, which in turn amplifies the attack and strikes their target with the literal air with so much force that they originally used. Yuta uses sky manipulation and curse speech in a combo, showing us that Yuta is capable of repeatedly, as many times as he wants, to use his copy techniques within his domain, which is pretty overpowered and cracked if you ask me. He uses this to stop Sukuna in his place by shouting "don't move," and then right after that follows it off with sending a swarm of swords raining down on him using Thin Icebreaker in a combo. And then back to the fight, Ishigori is confused and begins to question how Yuta's true abilities work. I didn't think he was a mere cursed speech user. I thought that big thing had a curse technique of his own, but I was wrong. Okatsu's curse technique is copy, but there must be a major condition for it. So when did he satisfy it? When I wasn't looking? Surely it isn't conditionless. In Ishigori's judgment, he concludes that when Rika took a bite out of Yuro's arm, that was when Rika managed to copy the technique. That Rika can only copy a technique if she consumes any part of that person, even DNA. It has to be DNA. That Rika can only copy a technique if she consumes any part of that person. This theory is just that, a theory, because Yuta never mentioned anything about the conditions, but we can infer as readers that it is a plausible explanation. And yet again, in the same exact fight against Ishigori, Yuta showcased yet another curse technique that he has copied into his arsenal, which is just cracked at this point. 3 curse techniques that he's displaying. This man is literally copying techniques back to back like it's nothing. Yuta manages to copy a domain technique from a reincarnated sorcerer, and this reincarnated sorcerer's name was Dhruv Lakdwala. He was a Shikigami user of unusual talent. Dhruv had a giant rodent-like Shikigami that he could summon in situations that call for brute force, but his smaller summons are arguably more dangerous. Using his hair as a medium, he could summon several insect-like Shikigami with unique abilities that even Yuta wanted. But despite this, poor Dhruv only managed to get 2 pages of screen time before getting sliced by Yuta, and even then, Yuta managed to copy his technique and use it against Ishiguro not too long after this moment. It doesn't seem like Yuta really got a chance to experience Dhruv's technique before eliminating him, which makes me wonder whether Yuta even needs to see and understand someone's technique before he can himself copy it, as this would make more sense opposed to him somehow already knowing someone's technique before even fighting them. During the culling game, one of the Jujutsu High students' main objectives was to team up with a mysterious sorcerer known as solely Angel. Since the Angel's curse technique was Extinguishment, an ability that allowed her to instantly nullify all forms of Jujutsu, she was their best bet for freeing Gojo and for defeating Sukuna. And after she freed Gojo, the Angel was severely wounded by Sukuna and rendered unable to fight, but her technique is still relevant as ever, as Yuta successfully copied her Extinguishment, and it now forms the linchpin of the plan to free Megumi Fushiguro from Sukuna's control. Extinguishment has the potential to destroy cursed objects and has already ended up cooking Sukuna once. If Yuta manages to land another successful hit of Jacob's Ladder on the King of Curses, Sukuna's reign might end up being cut short. And yet again, this one, it doesn't really have much explanation behind it how Yuta acquired and copied this technique, but we can infer that there was something that happened behind the scenes with him and Angel. Maybe he ingested some of her blood, Rika probably ingested a vial of her blood or something of that sort, and allowing Yuta to use the technique before the fight. Moving on to the next technique that he's copied so far in the series. The foreigner who was born and raised in Japan, Charles Bernard, is a regular human that was transformed into a sorcerer and forced to participate in the culling game. After running into Akari and going on the merry-go-round with him, yeah, pretty weird, Akari calls him a creepy otaku, invoking a fight between them, where Charles Bernard showcases his ability, Clairvoyance. His curse technique was heavily dependent on G Warstaff, a staff curse tool shaped like a giant fountain pen. When Charles drew blood from his opponents with this curse tool, a small manga panel appeared on them, revealing their future movements to him, so he could easily counter them. This technique is powered by how much Charles makes his opponents bleed, which Charles calls ink. The more blood drawn, the farther into the future he is able to see. He fell short when he couldn't keep up with his own ability, and Hikari managed to subdue him. Although Yuta has successfully copied Clairvoyance, he doesn't have access to the G Warstaff curse tool that Bernard uses against his fight against Hikari. Instead, he seems to be able to fulfill the conditions for ink with his regular katana. He managed to draw blood from Sukuna, as we've seen in the fight against them while they were both trapped in his domain, and predict his movements, proving that while the curse tool remained with his original wielder, he did indeed possess Charles Bernard's curse technique. Yuta hasn't been shown in the manga to meet the aspiring manga artist yet, so the exact process of how he copied this technique hasn't been revealed exactly just to us yet. The curse technique with the most far-reaching implication that Yuta has copied so far has been Sukuna's Cleave. While battling Sukuna in his domain expansion, Yuta activated Cleave at point-blank range against its original wielder, becoming one of the few characters that have managed to surprise Sukuna. Cleave is one of Sukuna's slashing attacks and can only be activated when he has direct physical contact with his target. Cleave automatically adjusts its output based on its target's durability and cursed energy output. Yuta was able to gain access to Cleave by having Rika swallow Sukuna's final finger, which was in the form of a cursed object. Interestingly enough, the full nature of Sukuna's curse technique has not been revealed just yet, and in his most recent fight, Sukuna has used flame-based attacks. If the activation requirement for Yuta's copy is truly the ingestion of a piece of the target's sorcerer's flesh, Yuta may have already discovered a few of Sukuna's secrets. In the worst case scenario, Yuta might already have some latent abilities he hasn't yet figured out how to activate, and may just be waiting for Sukuna to show him the models that might catapult him to an entirely different realm of sorcery. And as for how Yuta manages to maintain these curse techniques and how they get stored, because as Angel explained in a flashback, curse techniques are invariably connected to the brain. And as we already know, Rika is the one who stores these techniques and allows Yuta to use them. Other than that, I'll see you in the next video, and I appreciate you watching all the way this far into the video if you are still watching.